Hello everyone, I am Behivian Cosplay and today I will be paying for my crimes. What you see me wearing is my second attempt at a Megurine Luka cosplay. I actually cosplayed her for the first time in 2016 and that was because a friend of mine was super into Vocaloid at the time and she was making a Miku cosplay and said, "Oh, you should totally do a Vocaloid cosplay." And she gave me a list of all the Vocaloids she could think of that had alto type voice banks, because we were both in choir at the time. She was a soprano, I was an alto, and her thought process was, oh, we could sing at con, it would be so fun. So I don't remember most of the voice banks on that list. I do remember she was very insistent that I cosplay cool, which I looked at that cosplay and I said, I am 16 years old. I do not have that type of body confidence, and I don't think I could make that thing by going to a thrift store. So I landed on Megurine Luka because she's pretty, and that was something I could reasonably get at a thrift store. So I went with my mom and I got this like short sleeve button up shirt with gold buttons. I got a long black skirt, and this wasn't actually the thrift store, I got this brooch from my mom because she had gone to Japan in the 90s and brought back two of these, one for herself and one for my grandma. And my grandma had actually passed the winter before I made this cosplay, and my mom said, well, you'll get use out of it, so you're gonna inherit it anyway, here you go. And she was very supportive of my cosplays when I was using things that she had been hoarding for a very long time. So that's the backstory on the first cosplay, but I set out in 2018 to improve it because I low-key looked like a nun in that first Luka cosplay. So I made the vest, I made armbands, I altered the original skirt. This is the original skirt. I made belts, I added gold, and I didn't make shoes, but I got these like gladiator sandals and I added the gold lace. It's the same gold lace that I made the chest piece out of. And this was a lot of fun because the con I would wear to was always in the like July in the summer heat. So it was nice to have the dogs out. But there are some problems with this cosplay. I made this out of a non-stretch satin, which is very easy for sewing when you're a beginner sewist, but it is not very forgiving when you are like me and your size fluctuates throughout the month. So that's going to be changing. And I used ribbon for all of this edging instead of bias tape. And at the time, it was a very smart decision because bias tape is difficult, but ribbon is already sealed off on either side. So I got like 5 spools of it from Walmart. And it was really nice for structure because it has this wire going through the edge, and that didn't become a problem until years later when the wire started coming out of the ribbon, and it is now stabbing me in multiple places. I tried putting the armbands on, and I got so stabbed. So that's changing as well. This remaking of Luka is actually going to be split into 2 parts because I have 2 milestones for this build. The first one is actually at the beginning of April. I was accepted into the Moonlit Idol Fest at Anime Detour, and I'm going to be performing with Easter Island. We're going to do Happy Synthesizer, and I'm really excited because I grew up dancing. I really enjoy being in front of a crowd, but I never really felt like I had the elegance and cleanliness of moves, if you're a dancer, you know what I mean, to portray Megurine Luka. So I never really did any idol dancing, but I took a leap of faith last October and performed as a different Luka module at the Anime Fusion cosplay contest, and I got best performance, so maybe there is something there. So now I have a little bit more confidence to do that kind of thing, and I'm super excited. So the plan is to make the top, the skirt, the socks, and the shoes. I'm planning on making her gold boots from scratch because I have a very specific sole I want to use for them. I have some old jazz shoes that I want to pry the sole off of and add to the boots for dancing. So that'll be interesting. We'll see how that turns out. But that'll hopefully be achievable for me in 3 months. But anything is possible. That's why I like having these kinds of checkpoints, because anything I don't do ahead of the Idol Fest, as long as it's wearable, I can do for the second half, because my second goalpost is to compete with Luka. It turns out Luka is my favorite voice bank. It worked out really well. So I want to do right by her. I want to make this absolutely spectacular, and I am hoping it'll be to the level where I feel confident competing with her. So hopefully that'll be end of August. We'll see. But that second video, that stretch, will be her accessories. So her headset, her armbands, her arm cone, and then anything else I've left off from the Idol Fest. Like, I want to do some beading and embroidery, and I'm not about to do that ahead of the Idol Fest. So that'll all be in the second video, hopefully. I did actually start mocking up some of this stuff back in 2019. I had some ideas for how I wanted to upgrade my Luka cosplay again, and I started work on it in spring 2020 because I needed a workshop space. And wouldn't you know it, March 2020, I lost access to that workshop space. So Luka has been kind of on the back burner since then, and now it is to the point where instead of just doing those accessory upgrades, I just want to redo the whole thing. So I'm excited to get started. I have 4 different kinds of gold cording that I got from various places. This was from the original Luka costume. This was from S.R. Harris. I believe this was from a garage sale. This was probably from Joann's, I think. And I do not remember where I got this one, but Gut says also a garage sale. I also have this beaded coaster that I picked up in the kind of giveaway pile that my condo has, and I'm gonna harvest those beads. Over here I have gold lame and a skin-colored power mesh from Mood Fabrics that I ordered at the very beginning of 2023, thinking I would get this project done in 2023. How foolish of me. I've got 2 kinds of vinyl from S.R. Harris, this gold, and this is kind of a brown, but it's got this really nice teal sheen. So I've already used this stuff in my 2018 Luka cosplay with the arm cone and the belts, so I'm going to do my best to use the rest of this. I think I have just enough of this gold to make her shoes. Speaking of shoes, these are a pair of my old jazz shoes from when I was a 6.5 foot size. I'm planning on harvesting the soles off of these and using this as kind of a guide on how to sew shoes, question mark. I also have these headphones that I got from when I started my first job right out of college. We all got cordless headphones. I don't really like these, so I'm going to make them into Luka's headphones and then they'll be functional. Over here I have the sheer black shirt I used for my 2018 Luka. I'm going to keep this as part of the cosplay, even though it's not necessarily correct for the Project Sekai version, simply because then I have something to bead her number onto. I don't know what I'm going to use these for yet. These were from an estate sale in 2020. And honestly, if I don't use them for this Luka, I'll probably use them for a different Luka design. And finally, this find. This was a dance costume that a family member was giving away this summer, and I noticed this lovely gold lame, and it is ever so slightly different from the stuff I ordered from Mood Fabrics. It's like a slightly different, hold on, this is hard to do with one hand. Oh, come on. How many layers are there? I ordered like 3 yards of this, and I'm worried it's not going to be enough because of how large Luka's skirt is. Oh my god, hold on. Slightly different gold. You literally cannot tell on the camera. In real life, you can tell it is a very slightly different gold. So this, I'm most likely going to use for her socks because you can't see the gold, but the blacks are almost exactly the same. And this also gives me a very unique opportunity to test out an idea I had with horsehair braid. Oh my gosh, hold on, let me grab a horsehair braid. Okay, I have an obscene amount of 2-inch horsehair braid that I haven't really had a use for because I thought this would be like 3 yards, not 30 when I ordered it from Amazon. So I'm going to use this around the edge of this gold lame and see if I can finagle it to lay nicely when it's kind of this, not necessarily a circle skirt, but I am worried that it will turn out looking like a lampshade rather than a circle skirt. So I'm gonna try it on this first before I disassemble it to steal the fabrics. I am also gonna steal the shorts off of this, use them as safety shorts in my Luka. It's free shorts. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to use the rose fabric on here. It's so pretty and it's got like gold edges on the roses, but I can't think of a spot to put it on Luka. And again, might just use it on a different Luka in the future. I do think I will use these. I have an idea for these appliques. So we'll see how much I can salvage from this old dance costume. I am on the floor and I'm gonna try to explain the test I ran on this dance costume. So what I did is I sewed just a straight running stitch on the very edge of this skirt. It turned out to be not quite a circle skirt because it's high-low, but it was a curved edge. So when I stitched the horsehair braid down to the edge, it didn't want to lay flat when I turned it up because of the geometry and how circle circumferences work. So what I did to attempt to get it to fit is I treated this running stitch like a gathering stitch. I pulled out the bobbin thread and I pulled on it to kind of gather it up so it would lay flat with, like, when this was all sprawled out on my floor. And in some sections, it turned out really nice, especially where it's more parallel to the floor. But in some sections, especially up here with a really harsh turn, it just looks bad. So what I think I'm going to do is, instead of trying to turn up the edge when I do my final version, I am going to cut the circle skirt-ish. It's not really a circle. And then I'm going to cut a second band about, I think this is either 2 or 2.5 inches. I'm going to attach them and have a seam here, and then I'll sandwich the horsehair between the two. That way I can cut, it's basically like a facing. I can cut it on the same curve that the circle-ish skirt will be. I learned a lot from this. I was hoping actually that I wouldn't like the horsehair braid and that I could just do without it, but I do kind of like the horsehair braid and how it makes the curves a lot larger. Okay, quick self-indulgent try on before I tear this thing apart. I had honestly thought about just using this as another Luka cosplay, but the shorts are not doing it for me. I think I need the full thigh-high socks. Otherwise, it's so cute. I took a major L because not only did I forget to record the dyeing process for the power mesh, but I forgot to save a sample of the original fabric and its color. So the only thing I have is this corner from the first sample I did because I didn't want to stick my whole hand in the bucket. But I dyed the power mesh. It looks like flesh, power flesh. I also dyed my Kave wig again because it wasn't dark enough the first time, and some streaks for an Al Haitham wig I'm working on. But yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Wow, color balance is doing something weird there. But I am Minnesotan, I am white, but I'm not as white as the fabric was, so this is a marked improvement. Let me just add in the build book picture I took, and you'll see what I mean. So for safety reasons, you are always supposed to duct tape patterns with a friend. However, I tried doing that and I got distracted. So we're doing this alone. And I'm praying that my hamstrings are enough to save me. Because this is about to get covered in duct tape. I ended up not showing it here, but once I got the duct tape off of my leg, I sectioned it into 4 parts. The bottom of the foot,
the stocking itself, the illusion of flesh, and the shorts. And here you can see me attaching the power mesh to the shorts. I already tried on the socks while you guys weren't looking. I sewed up the left sock with just a running stitch to see where the edges would land on my leg, and I took off about 2.5 inches from the flesh and an inch from the sock itself and tore it all apart, so now I'm ready to do the sewing proper. I've got the socks, the gold bands on the top of her socks with the proper gold lame, not just the leftover stuff I have, the shorts, the foot bottoms I'm going to cut out of some of the leftover dress lame, so I'll get to that at the very end of the socks, and the appliques. Right now I think is the best time to show you the weird folding tricks I'm doing to get these socks together. So for the sock to flesh seam, I'm doing kind of a 3-layer deal where I'm doing wrong sides of the sock and the shorts together, and then I am putting an additional stripe of fabric wrong side to right side, because this is gonna flip up and around and kind of back under these layers. So what it turns out is something like this, where I have the flesh part coming up out of this sandwich here, and then I've got this band covering the front part of the sock. I also want to talk about this seam here, the shorts to flesh seam. This is gonna get so weird, I'm so sorry. But this was one where I kind of laid them on top of each other, sew to seam. This is going to be easier. On top of each other, sew to seam, and then rotated it around like this and sewed another seam through all 4 layers of fabric. So all 2 edges are kind of sandwiched in. So this edge is sandwiched in, and then the edge of the black is also sandwiched in. And then it gives kind of the illusion of these shorts coming up off the body a little bit, like they're not attached, even though they are. So that's how I am kind of approaching these illusion sock type things. Next up was to top stitch the gold stripe down onto the stocking with a stretch stitch. I fought really hard to get a satin stitch here because it would have looked really slick on the interface between the gold and the black, but it just wasn't working, and honestly, I had my work cut out for me with that top stitch. And since fighting with that seam was such a chore, I knew if I tried to sew the bottoms of the feet on my machine, they would just get eaten by the feed dogs. So I decided to use a herringbone stitch for this seam, which is a stretch stitch that you can do by hand. It combines the strength of a back stitch with the flexibility of a zigzag stitch and allows your project to stretch without snapping the thread. So what you're going to do is start with the inside of the seam allowance. You're going to do a very small back stitch with your needle, just catching a little bit, just enough to have some extra thread in your stitch, so if it gets pulled, it'll bunch up a small amount there rather than putting too much tension on your thread. Then you're going to do the same thing on the outer edge of your fabric. This will create the zigzag, and essentially you're just going to repeat that back and forth until you've gone around your entire seam. And mind your pins like I'm doing here. I needed a lot of thread here. I tend to do twice the length of the seam allowance here, which makes it pretty unwieldy, but it does use more thread than your typical running stitch. And so on and so forth. At this point in the project, it was pretty relaxing to just sit down and do some hand sewing and watch some shows and not fight with my machine for once. And then I was able to get the socks done and move on to starting the skirt. Now this might be a mistake. It's probably a mistake for me to bring in math on unpaid time, but here we are. I wanted to do a circle skirt for Luka, but I realized I don't have enough gold lame to do a full circle, full length skirt. So I'm settling for a half circle skirt, which is already plenty of fabric, but I want to go a step beyond that because when I look at Luka, her skirt isn't floor length all the way around. There's this kind of taper to it, kind of like a high-low skirt. So I'm trying to do the math, and that means bringing out the old polar plotter here. So what I've done here is I've set the outer radius, probably basically the largest length I want to have in this skirt, and that is 48 inches. I divided it by 10 because I didn't want to zoom that much, and about 10-inch radius for my waist, since that comes out to about 30 inches of circumference when this is all said and done. We're not going to worry about that math right now. But because I wanted a taper to it, I did this funky thing over here, 3.8 sine of the angle plus 1, and I'll show you what that comes out to. So it becomes 1 as the angle approaches this horizontal line, and it approaches the maximum length of the skirt as the angle approaches 90 degrees. So that's pretty sweet. That's pretty handy. That really helps me visualize how I want to cut this fabric. And I don't know if you can see, that's kind of what I did for Dream Luka, except it was a full circle skirt where it was the longest at the tail end and it came up and it came up, and I don't like how these corners turned out. They turned a little bit too much of a right angle, but that kind of gradual shift I think will give me the angle I'm looking for. Okay, I real quick put the Dream Luka skirt on the mannequin so you guys can see what I'm talking about. I want it to go all the way down to maximum length a bit quicker than this, and I don't want quite as many waterfalls going on. So that will be helped by having the half circle skirt and having a more extreme jump from 0 to 100, I suppose. Plus I need to add about 4 inches of length. This one is not quite long enough. Now, I don't know how well this will show up on camera, but I have been struggling with these stripes because it's literally just the 2 layers of gold lame. And when I run them on their own, it's hard to describe. Like, the tension's kind of out of whack. I'm skipping stitches. It's just a really ugly seam. But what I've been doing is I've been using some medium weight stabilizer. It's not tearaway stabilizer, but by God, I'm going to use it like tearaway stabilizer because look at how smooth that is. And this is just a straight stitch. I'm not doing a stretch stitch because I don't really need that for these bands. But yeah, you can see the last seam I tore away was down here somewhere. Beautiful. Tore away. There's a little bit left here that I'd got to pull out by hand pretty much. But God, this fabric is so beautiful, but it hurts me so much. It pains me. It's also kind of see-through, so we'll see how that looks under stage lights. This single seam took over an hour of sewing because it was 15 feet of stretch stitch. You can see that I am chain stitching interfacing, which was not tearaway interfacing, by the way, but it became tearaway interfacing because I was so physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausted by this single seam that I had to sit down with a movie and just shred that interfacing out of that seam. And then do it all again to get the horsehair braid in there. Now that the horsehair is attached, you'll notice when I try to set it down, it's just all standing up. It doesn't want to fold in and lay flat. And when I've done this before on circle skirts, when I just force it down and sew it anyway, it turns out looking kind of like a lampshade. I'm gonna have to find a good picture to show you what I mean, but it doesn't look smooth. So what I'm doing here is I'm sewing a running stitch along the top, and I actually lost bobbin chicken somewhere over there, so I gotta do 2 of these. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to gather it down so it kind of follows that curve. And I'll show you what that looks like. we love black on black on black fabric. So what I'm doing here is I am cutting out the waistband for the skirt and tights combo, and I've kind of sized it by putting on the tights literally and pinning out where I want it to fall on my body, like what height I want the skirt to sit at and how far I want this yoke to go down. That's what it's called. It's a yoke because it's kind of triangular. And I'm actually double lining it. So I have the gold, where'd the other piece go? We got black on black on black fabric. I've got the gold layer, so the black matches the black, but then I've also got this black power mesh that I ordered at the same time as the flesh power mesh, but am not using elsewhere yet. I just thought it would be good to have on hand. So I'm on the floor using my rotary cutter to cut out these two layers and have them pinned together. So next step after that will be to sew this onto the shorts, and from there I'm not sure exactly how I'm gonna get the skirt on because I think I'm gonna have to pin where I want it to fall and then gather it up in case it's too large, which I don't mind. I think the gathering will look nice, but right now I have it pinned where it hits me on the sides and where it hits me on the back and front because the skirt itself is offset. I don't know, this would all make so much more sense on my mannequin, but no, here we are on the floor.
I then proceeded to not record anything else for the skirt until after Detour, so let's move on to the shirt.
Quick before I tear the old Luka top apart, I am testing out what I want to do with the collar because with this shirt, I had some issues of comfort where this collar came up too high, and it honestly doesn't sit very well anyway because I think it terminates too high. It needs to be further down here where kind of the contour of the neck continues down. So I have my mock-up collar from Eugene that I'm laying over top just to see how much further down I want it to come and therefore how much I have to curve the collar itself. So I think that is the biggest change I'm going to make to this. I might actually keep these darts. I kind of like where they are, but I'm also going to finish my seams better. I don't like making fun of my old work because obviously I didn't know any better, but it is also wild to me that for the first 5 years of my sewing career, I didn't know any other seam finishes besides straight stitch, zigzag stitch, and then not even trimming down to the edge of the zigzag stitch, so this is not helping with the fraying. I gotta respect the me that came before because she is the one that got me here. Here's what I'll say. It's nice to see how far I've come. I'm making piping for Luka's collar, and it is literally just a rectangle of fabric I've folded in half and threaded a string of yarn through. Yarn ball from, I've literally had this for 2 decades. And I am using the zipper foot because that's keeping the yarn to the side, so it gets kind of pushed to the side when I'm sewing it down. I cannot remember where I learned this hack. It was probably from a TikTok, honestly, but super easy piping. Con Crunch is getting to me, and I do not want to record any more time lapses for the time being, so I've finished the base for Luka's vest. I literally just used my old vest as a pattern, which we're going to see how it fits because this is obviously stretch and the last one was not, but I did the same shoulder seams. I extended them out. Hooray. I had same darts, French seams on the inside as promised, and I used the same technique I did with the skirt. I used the interfacing to go along, and the seams are nice and even, and I got to take out more rage by just tearing those. So that, I still need to do the, not really binding, I guess facing on the edge, same as the skirt. So I got to cut that out once I figure out how I want this to fit, like how much I need to leave for the closure. So that's there. I've got all the collar pieces as well. Got the piping. I've got the collar itself, and I'm actually using the satin as kind of an interfacing as well as a pattern piece. And then I've got the blue kind of edge on the top. I'm leaving the end open, you'll see what I mean later, because I want to thread the electroluminescent wire through that. I think it's going to look so cool, even though it's not in my hands yet, so it won't be done for Detour. Anyway, I'm going to go to bed. Okay, it's coming together. She's coming together. I've got the blue tube on top that's kind of sandwiched between all the layers. So we've got the two lame interfacing, blue tube, and then I've got the piping attached on the outside, and that's going to be basically, I'm going to stitch this onto the vest, and then I'm going to top stitch this side down so it sits all beautiful. And lucky me, my EL wire came in today. So let me get this. This is going to be hard with one hand, but turned on, it looks like this, and I'm going to have that threaded through this tube. That's why I left this spacer open, so I can thread and unthread that in the shirt and still wash it. So here's what it looks like all threaded through. Oh, I'm so excited to wear this. Okay, I am back from Detour. I wanted to do this in cosplay because I thought I looked cute, and it's Easter today, so I don't know. I'm gonna try to go over my post-con review because this is something I like to do just for myself with all of my cosplays, but specifically because I have a lot to say about Luka. So I think I missed out on getting a lot of work clips because I was so focused on just getting it wearable, getting done what needed to get done, and I'm gonna have to go back and scene rip a lot of the stuff that I did this past week because it's just it's not good. It's wearable, and I was honestly really happy that I did get her done in time to wear to Detour because I haven't worn her classic outfit since 2019 to a con. Like, I've done other versions of her. I did Dream Luka, I did Snow Luka, I did Cafe Luka, and hardly anyone knew who I was. In fact, with Snow Luka, a number of people thought I was Technoblade, so that was frustrating, but it was very nice to go and be classic Luka, and so many people complimented my Luka and they were excited to see a Luka. I did find one other Luka at con, so we got a picture together, but yeah, that was nice, even if I was very frustrated with a number of things that I was able to cover up with accessories. So I did have the French horn brooch, I guess. I don't even know what to call that. And I had her belts that I wanted to do some updates to those, but didn't get the chance to because I ran out of time. But overall, I think it pulled the look together really well. So there's a lot of improvements to be made. There's a lot of stuff. I keep glancing down there because it's sitting on the ground because I have not gotten a chance to clean after con. But first and foremost, the belts. Let me just grab them actually. They're still attached to the skirt. So what I would like to do is I would like to actually get some of the black gold lame fabric probably from the leftover dress and just put it as a backing lining or whatever. So probably a very narrow stitch around the edge. And then what I can do is I can hand sew snaps onto them and have snaps on the skirt. And then the belts will snap onto the skirt. Right now they are safety pinned because I didn't have any other options and I really didn't want to do any hand sewing. So that's what I think I'll do for those. I have a lot to figure out on the skirt. I'm probably going to tear out the whole waistband because I didn't get the points on the yoke as defined as I wanted them to be, and I need to finish the horsehair somehow because it was shredding itself and it started poking me, and thankfully that was not as bad as the ribbon that I had used previously for Luka. That was just one area and I could just kind of futz with it and it would go away for a bit. But it does need to be sealed off if I want to not explode at con. And the other big thing, I need to tear the waistband out anyway because the skirt is too long. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous, it looks great, but I'm gonna see if I can find a clip and insert it here. I was stepping on my skirt during the Idol Fest. I was about to trip myself, so I do need to shorten it if I'm going to have a successful performance. That's gonna be a lot of seam ripping because it's all stretch stitch. I'm gonna be very, very sad, but I'm going to watch a lot of shows. So at least there's that. At least I'll have something to do with my hands after work when I just don't really want to do anything else that requires thought. So that covers the skirt pretty much. I just tear out the waistband and do a bunch of fixes, fix the belts. The shirt, I don't know, man. I don't know what my problem was. The skirt was fine. I think because the corners were so much tighter on this thing, it pulled weird. I didn't get the band to line up very well. And over here, I just overshot entirely. There's this huge gap between the actual band and the zipper. So that's going to be a lot of seam ripping. And I'm kind of upset about it, actually, because the thing about this fabric is if you tear out a seam, especially on the gold side, it kind of misaligns the actual fabric, I guess. Like, I think the gold is only printed on the surface. I don't think it's actual woven gold material. So if you like disturb that by sending a needle through it, you see some of that black. So it's really obvious, especially on the skirt, where I've torn out a seam. And normally that would be fine because nobody should be looking at the inside anyway. But because I want this to be a competition piece, I'm assuming the judges are going to see it. And really the only way to fix it is to go out and buy new material. And I'm not about to do that. So my options are to leave it as is, which looks bad, chief, or tear it out and try to do better, which also looks bad, chief, but it's on the inside, so most people won't see it. So that's probably what I'm gonna do. Also, I'm so mad about, like, this color worked beautifully. I had the lights in it, it looked great. I was very excited about that part, but I lined it up perfectly on this side, so the edges lined up perfectly. I get all the way to the end. I don't know how this happened. They're misaligned by like a centimeter. Like, how did that happen? I cut this on the grain. What's going on here? I think, I don't know. Probably the heights are different in that mess. Yeah. So I'll still have to tear apart the whole collar, even though the collar turned out really nice. Like, look at this piping. Very pleased with it. It misaligned itself at the very end, so like this, it's pulling a bunch, and I had to hand stitch this down. So improvements to be made. I didn't even get the time to put the binding on the arm holes, so we'll get back to that later. We'll get around to it. So there's that, and I didn't finish the shoes. I didn't even start the shoes. I tore apart the dance shoes, and that's as far as I got. And that was fine. It's probably for the best that I wasn't trying to dance in new shoes that I had just made as well, even though the point of Detour, I keep reminding myself this, the point of Detour was to do cos testing. I wanted to test out my cosplays and see what I need to fix, and I accomplished that. But it would have been nice to test the shoes. But at the same time, it's a good thing I am making this video now after like Sunday of con and not before con on Friday, where I was 2 meltdowns in, or even like after con on Friday because I didn't get home until like 1 a.m. because I was running a panel, which was really fun, by the way. But I was very frustrated with this sewing. I was very frustrated, and I even posted on my story. If I ever try to tell you that it was fine, it was a challenge, but we overcame and it was fine, no, it sucked the whole time. It sucked. And I was really frustrated with myself for con crunching because I planned out, I gave myself 3 months to work on this, and I hardly did anything for January and February. And I'm like, what was my deal?
Why wasn't I working on it? I gave myself all this time. What was I doing in the meantime? And I guess the answer was I was struggling at work. I was coming home and I was so freaking tired that I just didn't have the energy to work on cosplay, which is, it's a hobby. You gotta rest. You gotta have time to rest. I'm going to be resting for the next week. You'd best believe I will be resting. But it's just frustrating to me because I never feel like I can accurately estimate how long a project is going to take me. And that's for a number of reasons. I learned a lot by doing that. And of course, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to have to go back and fix them. And I generally plan in time for making mistakes because I know that's going to happen. But it's just, it's the motivation, you know? I get more motivated when I have that deadline and I'm like, I have to do this. And I can push through a lot of the, oh, I'm tired. Oh, I'd rather be doing something else. If I have that deadline, I gotta meet it. But it's not fun at that point. And I'm hoping that watching the Detour Masquerade fixed me. I felt so much better after watching the Masquerade. I was feeling ready to tackle Luka again because just some of the costumes in there, and that made me, I just feel a little less behind, I guess. Like, it's so easy to feel like a failure when your stuff isn't coming out the way you envision because I don't really have the tools or the skills or the know-how to execute a lot of the really advanced techniques. I'm still miffed that I wasn't able to figure out satin stitching because that, I think, would make these seams a lot nicer to look at, and I would like to get that figured out at some point before I compete with this, but it just wasn't happening. It was a waste of time. For someone whose job is supposed to be project management and doing this kind of planning, the fact that I can't get it to work in my life in something that I have complete control over is very frustrating to me. And I'm still working through that. But we're gonna get her done because I'm so excited to have her done. I'm so excited to have, like, even just as she is without all of the accessories, I'm very proud of her. I feel like I have done well for myself despite the flaws, just attempting something like this. So I'm excited to see her come together now that I've gotten the chance to wear her. And I suppose that's why I did this like this, so I would get to wear my cosplay at midpoint so I don't have to wait until freaking August to wear this cosplay that I've been working on. I get to wear it and enjoy the fruits of my labor instead of having to wait because it's so easy to lose sight of like these bigger projects. So I think that was a reasonable checkpoint. I wish things had gone cleaner. I wish I had done more. I wish I had gotten the shoes done, but it's better than nothing. I have an actual wearable Luka now, and that's worth a lot. The rest of the con didn't go as planned either. I don't know if I'll include this in the video or edit it out, but Saturday was fine. Sunday, however, today, I was supposed to be cosplaying Now Ego Koro. Ako Kaguri was not on my lineup. But you may have noticed, I am in Ako Kaguri cosplay. And this is because I went to go put my wig on for Now. I noticed there's a dead stink bug in there. I removed the stink bug because I'm already at con. I have to run my panel. I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I guess there was just a bug in there. I take the bug out, I run the panel. I go to do kind of a photo video shoot with a friend of mine. And as I'm taking the wig off a second time because I didn't put clips in it, so it was sliding back, it was receding, and I see a second stink bug in the wig. You know, one is just a coincidence. That's peanut butter ratios. We can have one bug for funsies. But when there's two stink bugs in my wig, that's an infestation. the FDA needs to get involved in this peanut butter now. So the wig is currently in the bathtub. It is getting washed because what I suspect happened is I styled that thing back in 2021 and I wore it once. I moved with it. I hadn't really worn it since, so it had been just sitting on display on my shelf, just out. And every winter I do get stink bugs, and usually I catch them all and flush them because they're invasive. And evidently I missed a couple, and I don't know how long they had been in there because I had not touched that wig until yesterday. And that's part of my frustration with con crunching Luka is I did not have time to work on now. I wanted to get her apron done. I wanted to steam that wig to make it look all nice. I didn't have time for any of that because I was entirely focused on getting Luka wearable. It wasn't even extra stuff. It was getting her wearable. I was right up until I had to run to con to get to my first panel of the weekend. And so that was a lot of stuff that fell to the wayside because I had to make up for all that time I feel like I wasted in January and February. So I came home, I changed, and I put on Akko because I learned that her voice actor was at Detour. So I got my art book signed. That was very nice. I got a picture with her. So it all worked out in the end. And like I said, it's Easter. I got to wear an Easter themed cosplay. That's kind of my review. And hopefully I can look back at this in particular while I'm working through this. I'm sure I will in sometime in the summer because I think I'll extend this video to cover some of the stuff I do for Miku Expo, like the embroidery. I want to do that on the train ride out, and I want to get the shoes done. I don't know how far I'll get on the accessories, but for sure the shoes and the embroidery I want to get done for Miku Expo. And it'll be great. We're doing a photo shoot, a group of my friends. I think we'll have 4 of the 6 Kryptonbloids. So look forward to that. Look forward to more crafting. Assuming I don't waste all of April.
It is now May, and instead of working on Luka, I went on a bunch of side quests, such as moving my entire sewing area from over here to over here, and moving my wigs back away from the window. So that took a little bit, and I just haven't really been feeling motivated. I've been thinking about a bunch of my other projects. I did get a new camera, and I'm not filming on it because I just opened it and it needs to charge, but it fits perfectly on my ring light tripod. So I'm very excited to start using it and getting more cosplay pictures and vlog footage with that. So that'll be nice. That'll be awesome. Got some Kaito stuff over here. Right now, I am working on making a face mask for Luka because I am taking her to Miku Expo and I don't really want to risk getting sick ahead of going to another con 2 weeks later. So that's currently the plan, and hopefully that'll get me back into it. I'm also seam ripping the skirt, and that's taking a really long time because it's stretch stitch. I honestly don't know if I'm going to tackle seam ripping the shirt before Miku Expo because I don't want to be rushing to put it back together again. And honestly, it's fine. I can still take pictures in it. It'll be fine. So I'm going to focus on the skirt and hopefully the boots. And we'll see how we feel after Miku Expo. Okay, for whatever reason, I can't find the tutorial I followed for this type of mask. So if I do, I'll link it, and if not, this is kind of a crash course. So what I have is this kind of weird octagon shape, and I'm sewing 2 darts essentially. A deep one for the nose, this is upside down, and a shallow one for the chin, and it fits over my face essentially. So I'm doing that on both pieces, both the inner and outer linings. Remember, for a face mask, you want it to be a tight woven cotton and you want 2 layers for maximum efficiency. So I'm doing these both the same size, and then I'm going to finish the edges with this gold bias tape, and that'll be black and gold like Luka. I have this other version that I'm going to do because I just like this brown fabric, but I cut the outer layer much larger than the inner layer because I'm essentially going to double fold it over to kind of hold that inner layer in place and then top stitch it down. So those are two options. I wish I had a pattern. I've literally just been like taking a base and then plopping it down on my rotary board and then cutting it out again. The skirt has been detached after a lot of seam ripping. So what I've done here is I have run 3 gathering stitches actually. One from this edge to the deepest point of the back yoke, from the back yoke to the front yoke, and then this little bit here from the front yoke to the edge. And I'm going to use that as kind of a guideline for where to sew, as well as to literally gather down the waist, because I'm taking a good 3 inches out of the backside so it quits dragging on the floor and hopefully won't get bent out of shape anymore. I'm trying to bend it back into shape. But that means I do need to gather it down to actually fit at the waist. So I'm hoping that'll look nice. I think the gathering will look nice if I do it evenly. So fingers crossed this actually makes the yoke stand out like it should and have those actual sharp corners instead of just kind of looking like an uneven hem.
Quick fit check. This is what I'm thinking about wearing to Miku Expo if I don't feel like wearing the full cosplay. This is actually based on a street style art Luka that was sold at Shibuya 109, I think, back in 2020. So I've held on to this fit for a while. Hoping it turns out nice and comfy. I don't know what the temperature is going to be in the venue, but we'll find out. This is also the first clip I'm filming on the new camera. So this will be right next to all of the phone clips and we'll see how they compare. I took the mask off. Anyway, here's another update on how Luka is coming, because this is the Saturday before Miku Expo Chicago. And I didn't even touch the boots, like not even a little bit. And it is what it is. I worked on the skirt, I worked on the mask, and I'm gonna quick add some stuff to the shirt sleeves before the photo shoot stuff that we're doing. And I've made my peace with it. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about my values when it comes to cosplay, and even before this project. I'm gonna lean back against this table because I feel like a cool teacher or whatever. But my first priority when it comes to cosplay is always my friends. And this has been kind of tough for me because Luka is very much a solo project. I want to do this for myself because I love Luka regardless of what my friends do. However, my friends are also very into Vocaloid, and some of them are very excited to see Luka done, so I've had a little bit of that pressure as well, which is not to say anything bad about friends being hyped for cosplays, because like that's a good thing, that's a good feeling. It's about community, but it's something I've had to weigh because some of the plans I've had for Luka have had me push aside other plans with friends and even family. Tomorrow is Mother's Day, and I was kind of not a great daughter as far as feeling a little bit grumpy about having to do stuff tomorrow. The original plan was to do stuff today. My whole family, we went out to the zoo. It was fun, it was awesome, but my mom also wanted me to come out to a lake with her and go snorkeling, and I was like, oh, I had this time planned to work on Luka, and I'm kind of upset about it. What am I doing? That's my mother! So even just that small amount of, I'm not going to con crunch Luka anymore, it is what it is. That's what matters to me. And I could list out a whole bunch of excuses on why I didn't work on her earlier, anywhere from like, I have a job, to I've been hanging out with friends, to I've been so freaking tired that I just have needed to rest instead of working, and that's fine. It is what it is. It's a hobby. And because of all that, I've also decided to push off the non-Desukan due date. It's just not realistic for me anymore. It's gonna mean I will have a worse summer for it. And I've also been warned that, you know, going up to Denver when you live at a lower altitude like I do, it can be really hard to do high aerobic activities, which is what my performance would be if I were to compete at non-Desukan. So yes, I could train for that. It could be so awesome. Or I can cosplay with my friend who is going to Non-Desicon with me, we're planning on doing a one-piece group. And I really don't need to do a whole lot for the cosplay that I plan on doing for that group. And that took a whole lot of stress off of my mind. So this video series is going to drag on because I did not do what I set out to do for this portion of the video. But you know what? It is what it is. Plans change. This is a hobby. And I've made peace with it, which I hadn't in the last clip. So let's go. I think the rest of this video is going to be vlogging from Miku Expo. I don't know how much I'll actually do because I've never really done a vlog around friends before. I'm sure they'll be interested in it, maybe even hyped for it, so we'll see how much footage I come back with, but for sure I want to get some footage of the embroidering and beadwork I'm going to be doing on the train out there, because I am going to be taking a train from St. Paul to Chicago. It's going to be about 8 hours of just sitting, and that's like the perfect time to do embroidery and beadwork. So I'll get done what I can on the way out, and that'll be great for the photo shoot, and if I, for whatever reason, don't finish it, I can work on it on the way back. So that'll be really nice, actually. I am looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to spending time with friends at Miku Expo, regardless of how done my cosplay is. She's wearable, and that's what's important. I am disappointed that she's not done to the level I wanted for a photo shoot, but oh no, I'll have to do another photo shoot. How terrible. How awful. I'll have to have more photos of Luka. So, yeah, that's the current plan. I think what I'm going to do is I'll reassess at Colossal Con, because that is when I am doing a full Krypton Lloyd group, and I would like to have Luka done by then, but it's not a requirement. And either I'll compete at Colossal Con because I have a really long time limit for performances, or I will shoot for Anime Milwaukee, because that is a pretty high level competition. It is juried, and I think it'd be awesome to even be considered for a juried cosplay competition. And I feel like with the amount of work I'm doing on Luka ahead of the competition, I'd have a decent shot of just getting in. So that's kind of the plan for the rest of this video series. I don't know when part 2 will come out. I've got no clue, but part 1 I should be working on through the rest of the summer. This takes so long to edit, dude. It takes so long to edit. But sometime after Miku Expo. I'm calling Miku Expo the chopping point, and everything that I haven't worked on, which is basically all of the non-sewing elements, will be after Miku Expo. And I will take my sweet time, and they will be so cool. So I'm going to quick finish up a couple of things and get packed, and I will see you guys for Miku Expo.
Calling it for the night. I did not get the sleeve caps done, nor did I even work on the belts. I remember thinking a lot about those and how, oh yeah, I'll get home from work and then I'll work on the belts. And you know what I did? Not that. But I did get the skirt fixed. It looks so much nicer, and I'm hoping it's gonna not cause as many problems walking around downtown Chicago. So that was ultimately the most important thing. And I've got all of my supplies for working on the train and also sitting on the train, not breathing in train germs. So I'm gonna go to bed. I'm so tired. Maybe I'll just sleep on the train. It's so empty this early in the morning. We're here at Union Depot getting ready to get on the train, and there's already someone else who's going to Miku Expo on the same train because they're wearing a Miku shirt. Of the concert, I actually did the Japanese method of not getting into cosplay until I get to a location, because a friend of mine and I, we took the L train to get to a photo studio, and I was not about to wear Luka on the L train. So I'm getting changed right now, and we're gonna take pictures. I'm so excited for this. The studio is so cool. Look at that sleigh. We're here. You should do, what's the Sims wave? So. Anyway, we're here at the photo studio. Look at
Look at that. Slay, Nat. Slay, Cassie. We just got back from the photo shoot. I think the photos turned out great, but unfortunately, here I am in Luka cosplay, about to go on the L train with my Luka cosplay.
Quite literally.
We're taking the L because we got to the photo studio. Us two got there a bit late, but the rest of our group got there on time, and we were waiting almost 30 minutes for the guy to get there and unlock the studio. So we were shorted about 30 minutes of our photo shoot, and we were told originally, okay, you can stay late, but then we were told, okay, the other group has shown up, you have to get out of there. So I didn't have time to change. So I am now, I'm taking the L. It is what it is. But we're gonna go to the Bean. We're gonna get some Bean photos with Cassie, who is gonna get a lovely sticker right here. And then we're gonna go back to the hotel and figure out what to do next. We're at the Bean. It's closed.
Being closed.
It's closed. We're at the meetup. So many fans here. I have so much merch. Oh, they're just handing stuff out.
Careful of your movements and not surfing the energy of the stage.
That is a wrap for part 1 of my Luka build. Thank you so much for coming on this adventure with me. If you worked on a craft while you watched this video, let me know in the comments, and stick around for part 2 of Luka and some other projects I've been working on.